welcome to Sunday Recap. I'm Nana and I'm here with Rev Amy. We have just had a great Palm Sunday, Sunday gone, and Amy, you know what I'm going to ask you?
What are you going to ask me, Nana?
Can you give us a 3-minute summary of what you preached on Palm Sunday?
Okay, I thought you were going to ask me something different or original, but nope, straight through with
that.
that. 3-minute summary of Palm Sunday message. Well, year by year, Palm Sunday is a special Sunday in the church calendar where we begin Holy Week. We join Jesus in his journey towards the cross, and on Palm Sunday we celebrate the story of when Jesus arrives into Jerusalem upon a donkey. The crowds gather, there's singing, there's praise. It's a praise party, but there are also a whole load of other things going on. There are lots of prophecies being fulfilled in the actions that happen, most notably Zechariah chapter 9, behold, Israel, your king comes riding upon a donkey, the peaceful Messiah. In Luke's account, really interesting, there's no mention of palm leaves. Really, really interesting. I don't know if we want to talk more about that, but what is Luke wanting his readers to see in this Jesus that arrives, the King of the world, the one who's come to bring about salvation for all? There's also something we spoke around. How do the crowd respond? Well, the disciples lead the praise song and then the crowd join in, and there's this atmosphere of excitement and joy. The crowd come with all their hopes. Perhaps this is the one who is going to save them from the Romans, and so they roar and they shout. They gather palm leaves in order to wave in this new king of Israel. But there's also the Pharisees, and their reaction as they watch on, they tell Jesus to make the crowd shut up. They're confronted by this worship of who the crowd are wondering, is it the Messiah? And so they need Jesus to stop the crowd, to stop this improper worship. And yet Jesus says to them, even if the crowd were silent, the rocks themselves would cry out. So in our sermon we thought a little bit about where we are in the story. Are we people that receive Jesus with joy? Are we like the crowd when it's a praise party and when it's all good, we worship and we praise because we want Jesus to give us the source of our hopes? But are we also like that crowd that will soon turn their backs when it's difficult, when Jesus isn't who we want him to be? Do we stop praising? Are we like the Pharisees? Actually, Jesus, you make me uncomfortable, so I don't want anything to do with you. Jesus, stay in your lane. You can hug Sunday mornings, but nothing else, because I like the way that the structures and the systems are. When I say cheeky, maybe perhaps, are you like the donkey? Are you willing to be available to Jesus whenever he asks of you, whatever he asks of you? The 2 disciples that go and get the donkey have to follow Jesus' instructions, which at the time make no sense, but as Jesus says, so they find it to be. So we talked a little bit around, do we trust Jesus with the details? Where are we in the story? Are we ready to worship Jesus as he is? And actually there's a decision to be made. Jesus enters into Jerusalem, the king arrives. Do we worship who he says he is? Do we worship who we hope he is, but turn away when he's not? Are we like the Pharisees who tell everyone to shut up? Where are we? Jesus still makes us answer that question. You can't be neutral.
Yeah.
You're in the crowd or not, and which crowd are you in? Really being the summary of the story.
Yeah, that's I suppose that kind of question can make people feel quite uncomfortable. And Palm Sundays is usually known for the start of the celebrations, and but there's also that, I suppose, other side of the coin where it's there is a side of reflection.
Yeah, so the reason why I'm kind of smirking is there's a big debate in biblical scholarship around the nature of the 2 crowds. So the first crowd that come in with Jesus singing are the ones coming in from the villages. The disciples start the song, Bethpage and Bethany, and as they come down the Mount of Olives, is there something of these kind of rural farmers that are joining in the procession? Is there something from the outside that comes in with praise? And then interestingly, like when this second crowd form, this starts from the inside and it's actually without the disciples who were outsiders there. The powers and the elites of the day who would have been in central Jerusalem, well, their crowd is the one that lead and whip up the negative cry. So there's some interesting stuff going on in the 2 crowds of the inside voice, the outside voice, the powerful voice that rejects, something of the hope of the oppressed that comes from the suburbs in. And so again, that question that I was kind of posing of who starts the song of praise becomes even more important, because it's the disciples and those from the outsides who lead the hymn of praise that everyone starts to sing. But when the disciples have scattered after Jesus' arrest, when there are no followers of Jesus there to challenge the authority of the day, well, then the unjust political corruption whip up the crowd to cry crucify and not to have Jesus released. So there's something interesting. And so the question then about what crowd are we in, or are we willing to sound our voices, whether we're powerful or not, whether we're on the inside or the outside as followers of Jesus, what is the song that we give to the world to join in with? And are we vocal or are we absent? You know, there's a real interesting power play going on there.
Part of this Easter story is as much about Jesus as it is about our response to what he's done, what he came here to accomplish. And you know, you spoke about how some of the crowd, you know, their expectation of Jesus was like, oh yeah, you know, he's here to come and defeat the Romans, and you know, but Jesus had a completely different purpose as to why he was kind of going through that. So how does that kind of play into how we respond to the Easter story?
There's so much to unpack in these questions, Nana. No, there's something initially first of, you know, are we secret Christians? And that was where you just started saying, I mean, a really easy question to maybe figure out, am I a secret Christian or not? Do your friends know you go to church on a Sunday? Do your colleagues notice something distinctive at you at work or at school? What gives away the fact that you're a follower of Jesus? I know it's like an tricky question to ask us all, but what difference does following Jesus or being at church on a Sunday make to how you live the rest of the week? If it surprises people to find out you're a Christian, then maybe you're more of a secret Christian than what you might like to think. There's a challenge there about how I live that out. Secondly, you were asking a little thing around hopes and our hopes of Jesus and what that looks like. It's really interesting. So we had Luke's telling of, and obviously he doesn't mention the palm branches, which were a symbol of Israel's sovereignty. They were, whenever there was a political revolt that happened, it was the palm leaves. So when Maccabeus arrived, you know, 150 years before Jesus, the people lined the streets for this political leader that was going to come and get rid of the tyrants. It was a symbol of sovereignty. So it's interesting that Luke doesn't mention the palm branches, because actually he is making this point of Jesus is not just to be the king of Israel, he's going to become the saviour of the world. That's a really key theme for Luke in his gospel. So it's interesting, and maybe you've never noticed that before. One of the things I find really interesting, if I can go totally down a rabbit hole, John's account of Palm Sunday, go and read it, because it's interesting. What happens in John's account is, as Jesus comes down the mountain, first of all, he's on foot, and the people greet him with cloaks and with singing. But as the crowd begin to fall, Jesus then sends the disciples at that point to get the donkey, because he needs to then show these people who are gathering who he's come to be. And so then Jesus at that point gets on the donkey, and then we're told that's where the palm branches appear in John's account. I find Palm Sunday, I love the praise songs, but I also find it one of the most challenging Sundays, because if we can push past just a praise party, there is a big question for all of us who profess to follow Jesus about which Jesus are we following. Are we following the vending machine Jesus, who I tell him what I want and I maybe give him a bit of money here and then this is what I want in return? And when Jesus doesn't come through for that, well stuff it, like I've got more important things to do. Are you like that crowd who want military might but don't want to suffer first? Do we worship the God who is, was and always will be, the one who is bigger than what I can get my head around, the one whose detail coverage doesn't just involve what I want it to cover, but who sees all things and has plans for my good? Am I willing to worship him even when he seems to not do what I think is best for me? That's why I find Palm Sunday so confronting, in the sense of, do I worship Jesus as he is, or do I do what the crowd do and just worship the one who I hope will fulfill X, Y and Z? And when he doesn't do X, Y and Z in the time that I think he should, how then in my heart do I respond to a God that is good?
That's very, very thought-provoking comments there, Amy. You know, you mentioned the scene about you know, Jesus sending the disciples to go and get the donkey, and you know, kind of also likened it to I mean, if we were a tool that Jesus was going to use, not a donkey, but are we willing to be used by Jesus?
In that of, are you prepared, in two flips of the word, like, are you prepared to be like the donkey, to be available, ready, for whatever Jesus' needs are, but are you also, I guess, are you willing to look silly, rather than use that word again, around for God? The disciples had to take a trust that, as Jesus said, that they were going to go, that they weren't going to get beat up, that they weren't going to get accused of stealing the donkey. There's a whole load of stuff going on within that. I think there's something really interesting around, so this donkey has never been ridden before, so Jesus is the first rider, but so often in life we put off doing things because we don't think we've got enough experience, or we don't know if it's, the donkey had never carried anyone before, but yet was entrusted with the most precious load it would ever carry, because when it's Jesus who asks for it to be used, he qualifies you for that job. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's easy to go, oh, this needs done, but I've never done that before. What if I fail? What if it's a flop? If Jesus says you're the one, you're the one. Doesn't care about your age, doesn't care about experience. He calls because he sees the heart. And so there's a question there about, are you ready to be used? And I think there's the trust of the disciples. Like, Jesus says, go into the village and bring back the donkey. Tells them what to say, tells them what to do. If you're like me in the sense of, do you want to know, well, how far do I go? What do I say if there's a problem that kicks off?
All the details.
The disciples trust Jesus enough to take the 4 details he gives them to go and bring back. Now,
the Palm Sunday kind of message, the story, it's I think I've definitely seen it in a new light, and I'm excited to kind of go back, delve in, and relive that time period as well. And I'd encourage you to also, during this Easter period, like, go over the Easter, the different parts of the Easter story, and relive what it was like through the eyes of the Gospels. So thank you, Amy.
My pleasure.
It's been another whirlwind. If you are joining in with us via YouTube, please remember that Sunday Recap is also going to be on Instagram, and you can watch Sunday's sermon back on YouTube and on Instagram. We're also on Facebook, and this coming Easter week we have got loads and loads going on at St. Luke's, so make sure you visit our website, our social media pages, to find out all that is going on. We hope to see you at some of our events this week. It's going to be amazing. Of course, Easter Sunday is going to be bonkers, so you need to be there. Invite your friends, invite your family. You are most welcome here at St. Luke's, and we will surely be back next Sunday with another Sunday recap. And if you have any comments as well, put them down below. Any thoughts to share, we'd love to read them. So until then, see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.